This is Colin O'Keefe here for LXBN TV. Nowadays, it's more important than ever to manage one's finances. Most people understand that, but don't always take the necessary steps to do so, like setting up a personal budget. Joining LXBN TV to offer a bit of advice on doing exactly that is attorney Sam Turco. He is author of the Nebraska Debt and Bankruptcy blog. Sam, first off, basically, what are the first steps that someone should take when it comes to setting up a personal budget?
Well, probably, Colin, the most common mistake we see, especially in a husband-wife situation, is that everybody establishes like a joint bank account to pay pretty much everything in their life. And it's a situation where, the wife and the husband each have a debit card. They get direct deposits of their paycheck, and they're spending all month long, and it's a situation where all the money is mixed together, and there's really no priority to that money. And so in the same account that they need to pay their mortgage, their insurance, and all the really important stuff that they spend on each month, they're also using that to pay less expensive and less priority items. And they might go out to eat, and they might have different school expenses for the kids, which are nice, but which aren't super critical. And what we noticed in our practice is a lot of our clients were, they always had enough money to pay the mortgage, but for some reason it wasn't getting paid. And and the answer would be they'd come to the end of the month and they'd be short on finances. They just wouldn't have the money. And it was always a curiosity of how is it that, you could earn, 50 to 100,000 a year, and you've got a 1 to 2,000 a month mortgage, but it didn't get paid. What was going on? And what became obvious is that, there was a situation where there was always something coming up, always whether it's a car repair or a kid had some issue, and so they were taking care of everybody else in their life, but forgetting their priorities. And so what we have recommended to our clients is to figure out how much per month are the absolutely critical bills that you have to pay. And we all know what those are. You're typically your mortgage, your car insurance, your car payment, and so forth, and add those up and see how much it is a month and figure out how much that would come to per paycheck. And then what we recommend is they establish a second bank account and have whatever that amount is necessary out of their paychecks to go into a separate account to make sure that there's enough money in the second account to pay those critical bills each month. What you're doing there is basically dividing money. And we use bank accounts much like people used to use envelopes. It used to be people were paid in cash and they used to be paid weekly. And so you'd always have these stories of people having 5 or 6 envelopes in their purse and so forth, and where they say, okay, this is the mortgage envelope, this is the insurance envelope, and so forth. And we encourage people to use that concept of dividing their money so that they use a separate account for each important expense. And that way, they don't wind up short at the end of the month on their critical bills. But it's a little technique that's kind of stupid, but it really works. And you'll sit down with people, and all of a sudden, it's like a light turns on, and they go, "Gosh, we can do that." We just, I think it's a situation where you get people who are good-hearted, and they're trying to please too many people, and the kids come up and say, "Hey, Mom and Dad, can you give me some money for this?" And somebody in the family's got an issue, and they need to take care of that, and they're taking care of too many people and putting themselves last. And in reality, you got to help people out, but you also got to put yourself first, at least on some very critical issues. So it's a simple technique that we find is really working well with our clients.
I see, and then you mentioned one of the big mistakes is like you mentioned not worrying about the things you need to worry about, not worrying about priorities. Are there any other mistakes that you see come up from people, whether they be big or small, that can lead to issues when it comes to setting up a budget? Are there any common mistakes that you see people make over and over again?
Yeah, it's common. Everybody's different. Some people are terrific at being organized, and usually in marriages, there's different personalities that meet and get together. You tend to have one spouse who's a little bit more organized and a little bit more on top of it, and another spouse who is a little bit more, free-willing, and if they see fun, they're going for it. And they say, life is short, I'm gonna do it. So, I think probably some people get very, very detailed in their budget, and that's terrific. I'm probably not one of those people, and I'm probably somebody who says keep it simple. And I think what goes on that's going to help a lot of people is to say, look, you need a plan that's super, super simple for you, and you need to, in some form or fashion, whether it be the old-fashioned envelopes and putting cash into envelopes to divide your money, or new modern envelopes called banking. What it comes down to is having a payday action plan, as I call it. You got to know what's going to happen to that paycheck before you receive it, and you can't budget too tight, because I think if you budget too vigorously, it becomes too much of a headache, and it's just like going on a diet, right after the holidays. It'll last for a couple weeks, but pretty soon, if it's too strict, you're going to quit that. You can only drink so many blended drinks of whatever they put in them in a day, and then you're going to say that's enough fiber for me. I gotta balance it a little bit better. And so I encourage people actually to consider opening a third or a fourth bank account to say, hey, look, while you're trying to get out of debt, you got to take care of the mortgage, you got to take care of the basic stuff, but you got to plan for some fun too. And I don't think that you're going to stick to a budget unless you see you're rewarded for things like, hey, we want to take a family vacation, and we have to get out of the mode of putting it on a credit card, because that's going away. But we still have to plan for the fun things. You meet a lot of people, you can just tell they've been through a storm, and it's like, look, life is short. You never know when your time is up. Take that second honeymoon, go on that vacation, and save $20 a paycheck into a separate account. And over time, that's going to turn into enough money to get away. And so I think you need short-term rewards, and I think you need long-term rewards for good behavior. And you need to take care of the critical stuff as well. So I think, if you run out of money in the account that you use for daily expenses, for your food, for your gasoline or whatever, somehow you're going to make it to the next payday. But if you run out of money in the account that pays your mortgage, then you've got a very serious problem. And so some people have very meticulous budgets, but I think for most people, they need a simple plan that says, look, if we have one account we're going to use, we're going to put so much of our paychecks into it so that every month we never miss another mortgage payment. We're going to use that online bill pay service, which is free, so that the mortgage is always paid on time, in full. They can never charge us another late fee. We're going to have a separate account just to pay for the day-to-day living expenses. And I even encourage people to say, hey, look, maybe you need a separate bank account to pay for your kind of your fun money. And it's okay for a husband to have one and a wife to have one, because then they don't have arguments about, well, hey, you bought this, so I'm going to buy that. It's kind of a revenge spending that can go on. It's like, no. Everybody works hard. Everybody gets a little bit of their own money with no questions asked. And I think as long as you have a general system that the first dollars you earn go to the most important things in your life, whatever you decide that to be, you tend to stay out of trouble.
Absolutely. Like you mentioned, it pays to have a plan, but it doesn't have to be overly complex, but, just set something up, whether it be, modern day envelopes, like you mentioned. It doesn't have to be too complex. Pretty simple to do something just like that.
Absolutely.
Once again, that was Sam Turco. For more of his insight on this subject, be sure to visit NebraskaDebtBankruptcyBlog.com. Thanks for joining me today, Sam.